different worlds, nothing left, just empty words. Back for breath, barely touch, nothing ever is enough.
Hey guys, I've been sitting here this entire morning taking care of business stuff concerning my release of the Shadow of You track. It's now finally available on Spotify and all other platforms. And every time a track is all done and released, there is actually not much more for me to do. It's now up to you to listen to the track and enjoy it. Actually, the only thing left to do for me is to head now to the studio and start with the next track. Vanessa bought a small little new gadget. In Germany it's called a Fusselrasierer. Kind of cleaning your jacket. That's enough. I don't have any patience for that. Oh my god, it's so fucking cold outside. The wind feels like needles in my face. I just hope for you you're living in a place that is not that cold right now. I guess today I'm leaving the coat on at least for the next half hour until the heat kicks in. Okay guys, let's just open up Logic and get started. I just love going down here, pressing onto Logic Pro X, wait a couple of seconds for it to open up, and then opening up my standard template, which I always use when I start a new track. The last time I did one of these templates, I've showed you how I basically just have a couple of effects ready, my drum routing and the mastering chain. It's all ready. This really gives me a lot more time to focus onto the creative part, instead of having to do this technical stuff each and every time I'm starting a new track. I will probably just start with the drums this time. I have here Guys, this is my drum sequencer. I will just program in the drums and let's see what I can come up with. I'm picking a tempo of 135. I'm placing my kick right here and the clap here. And now the fun part, going through the samples and trying to find a really cool kick sound and a really nice clap or snare sound. I think a snare might fit better to this kind of beat. Also, while going through the samples, I always try to tune them up or down and see if they fit even better than just as they are in the sample pack. Next, adding some hi-hats. Pitching them up by 2 semitones. The snare sound definitely needs a lot of reverb. On this type of beat, I'm adding a small sound right before the clap hits. It's usually a reversed head sound or an open head sound or a rim shot or a clap. It could be anything just to make it a bit more interesting. This one is quite nice, but it sounds a little bit too high in the pitch. It's really time to get rid of the coat. It's now nice and warm in here and the beat is also starting to go into the right direction. First of all, I need to get the MIDI out of Guru. I just go into the pattern mode, click onto Gate, and then I can drag here out the MIDI file. And then I basically have here the green MIDI part that is kind of just mimicking what is going on within Guru. Guru is now only triggered by the MIDI, so I can drag this out and make it as long as I want to. I will also give it, instead of 1 bar, 2 bars. Now I can add even more variations. For example, the sound in front of the clap. I will only need it every 2 bars. And I want to have another kick here at the end. Another thing I love to add, especially to electronic produced music, is a little bit of change in the notes. So I'm selecting the velocity tool and I just drag a couple of these hi-hat notes down or up, just to give them a bit more of a human feel. You could also just select all of them and go into functions and use the MIDI transform and choose the, where is it? And choose the Humanize. With these settings you can shift the notes back and front and change the velocity randomly to make it sound more human. As you can see, the more often I go onto apply, it will change the notes, and you can do it just forever. This is just for demonstration. I've done it way too much. As you can see, the first note is not even in the beat anymore. Just in doing it until I get to a point where it will sound okay. The shift in the position is a bit too much for me, so I will just select all again, press the Q button, quantize it, because there's another way to make this a little bit more controlled. You just select the MIDI part and go onto quantize and set it to one of the swing settings. I most of the times go for the 16C swing. It's, in my opinion, the nicest. It's not that much off that it sounds weird, and fits perfectly to electronic music that has a bit of a live feeling. This swing setting is also shifting notes, but is doing it way more controlled and is doing it on all MIDI parts the same. I think in Ableton you just move one potty up, that is called swing. I think also in Reason there's just one knob that is doing this for the entire track. I like about Logic that you can do it individually, and another thing I also like to do is shifting the claps a little bit to the front. With this type of beat it's not that important, but if you have a normal 4 to the floor house beat, you will have underneath the snare and the clap always the kick, and by shifting them a little bit to the front you will be able to make a bit more space between them. The listener will hear the attack of the clap before the kick is hitting. It will also make it way easier to mix it, and it also creates this groove. If you have the snare or the clap on a separate channel, you can just select it and go into delay and just drag it down to maybe -6 to -11 ticks. It really depends on where the clap or snare is sitting. Now let's get into mixing this drum loop. First of all, of course, using an EQ to just get rid of the sounds we don't need. Here on this kick I feel like the very low end is not really necessary, so we'll cut it at around 30 Hz. For now I'm not removing anything on the snare because this type of beat doesn't have the kick underneath of the snare. If you have here a kick you might just get rid of a little bit of the low end on the snare, but here it's standing totally on its own and actually needs this lower end. Removing quite a lot of the low end on the hi-hats just for safety. Adding a tiny bit of ambient reverb onto the hi-hats. By the way, for the ambient reverb I'm using the Valhalla Vintage Verb, and I have here a small drum room setting with just 0.4 seconds of decay time. There is another element missing. I have recorded a couple of years ago a lot of live drum loops, and I like to use them and integrate them into my music. This gives the entire track a more live feel, it will sound more human, and this loop in particular has only hi-hats and variations of drums, which are really hard to recreate in a computer, but super easy to play for a drummer. I've just dragged this loop in, added a bit of ambient reverb, cut it away a bit of the low end, adjusted the tempo, and it sounds now quite nice. Actually not that bad. I wish I could play the drums and would have an electronic drum set, but it's also working with Guru really nice. I might be adding later on a shaker or open hi-hats just to give the loop a little bit more speed, really depending on where it is going in the track and how the other elements are playing at the same time. It really depends. Now it's actually time to go to working on the melodic parts for the rest of the day.
It's broken from a ghost, I can see right through. Oh, 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 oh. I need more than the shadow of you.
I think I got it. I played a bit of piano, guitar, played in some synthi sounds, effect sounds, and this is by far the best song idea out of all of the ones that I've made over the past week. I think I will finish this and turn it into a complete track. I'm now having dinner with my parents, as almost every Friday. They will probably just tell me to sleep more and work less and to call them more often, so let's get over with it. It is just so cold. I'm now all done with the dinner with my parents. It was a lot of fun. We talked a lot about Trump and Clinton. Now I'm invited to join Vanessa and her parents. They invited me over to go to the cinema with them, and of course I'm late again. I could still make it in time, it really depends on the traffic, so now I will stop filming and just drive as fast as possible. This right here is not a legal parking spot. I'm getting already called by Vanessa. Ja? Ja, gerade angekommen. 1 Minute, bis gleich, ja? Ciao. The movie is starting in a minute. The good thing about these car to goes is that I actually might have a chance that someone else is taking the car before the police sees it parking here. I still have to disconnect it. Just back from the cinema. The movie was kind of okay, a German comedy film about refugees. It was kind of funny, but refugees and a funny comedy movie doesn't really fit together. It was okay, but maybe the wrong topic to make a comedy. And every time I'm in a cinema, I'm wondering why they let me in with the big camera, but today they didn't let me in. I just went downstairs, gave it to a guy working in a restaurant and tried to go back in. They didn't really let me even without the camera. They were super unfriendly to a point where I really can't understand it. After a lot of discussing, they let me in. I can understand that they're having a problem with the camera. That's okay, but how they treated me was like very unfriendly, like way over the top. I didn't get it. And when people are unfriendly to me, I also get a bit unfriendly. I got here presents from Vanessa's parents, her sister and her sister's husband. I won't open them now, I don't really have the time. I'm invited to a private party. This party is a bit special. It's only twice a year, free drinks, a lot of weird techno music. So really perfect for a Friday evening. I burnt myself. The heat is just crazy. It's really warm when you get super close to it, but it's not really enough for the entire room.